first met Sara Akbar 25 years ago in the oil fields in a liberated Kuwait, a burning oil field in liberated Kuwait. I'm not going to tell you now what she does. You can read that in her bio. I want to tell you who Sara Akbar is. And I would begin by telling you that she is an enormous, courageous woman. I saw it from the very beginning, when there were people who were trying to decide how you put oil fires out. Sara said, I know how to put out oil fire. And she took it, put together a team, and was in there with all of the danger, with all that was faced and uncertainties. And she was absolutely driven, absolutely committed. And she was one of those people that I met when we were back in Kuwait. One of the Kuwaitis, I should have said, that I met when we were there, who loves her country, who is dedicated to it, who was going to go out there and do what she could do to put the country back together. And she really never stopped doing that in her whole career. She has an enormous sense of responsibility, and she always is undaunted. As you well know, she knows how to speak her mind. She does so refreshingly, and it's wonderful. She obviously operates in a society where women have a certain place and are working to have that place change. But she has been there for 25 years, a real pioneer. She is determined. She's always had a vision about what she wanted, and she's always worked for it. And one thing I would say to you, Sara, you always did it with a lot of integrity. Please, invite you.
Good lunch. Thank you very much, Skip. I mean, I treasure your words. They are fantastic and beautiful, and you touch that spot in my heart. So, what I would like to share with you today is the idea, some crazy ideas, okay? And there is a history to this. And the history starts a long time ago, 35 years ago, when I joined Kuwait Oil Company. And I must say, I really know very little about diplomacy, okay? I know this is a Petro diplomacy kind of event, but I know very little about diplomacy. But I surely know a little bit more than some of your presidential candidates. So you bear with me, because some of the crazy ideas I will throw at my speech may not sound, realistic. But it's my vision. I'm a dreamer, and I would work very hard to make some of these dreams come true. So the notion that I'm a crazy woman comes back, like I said, 35 years ago, when I graduated as a chemical engineer and I joined Kuwait Oil Company. And I was born in an oil field. I lived all my life around oil fields, and it's my habitat, so I feel very comfortable in oil fields. And when I joined KOC, they told me that, oh, you, female engineer, go to the reservoir department. You cannot work, anything else, just reservoir, office work. And I thought to myself, look, if I wanted to be a good engineer, I have to get my hands dirty. I have to work in the oil fields. So I insisted to actually go and work in the oil fields. And after lots of negotiation, after understanding for the first time what men's ego mean, I managed to get my way through, and they accepted for me to work during daytime only in the oil field. So I became the first field engineer for KOC. And the first job I did was an offshore job. So I was sent to an offshore platform, and by the time I just started to the job, it was 4 p.m., that's the time I should go back. And they sent an engineer to replace me 10 o'clock, because the sea was very rough and nobody could come. The crew boat couldn't come. So when the engineer arrived, he was so seasick that he could not come to the platform. And he was sitting on the deck of the boat looking at the basket doing this, and he felt, oh no, I cannot do this job. I can't go to the heli deck. And people on the boat were telling him, look, there is a woman up there and she didn't, you can do it. He said, that's a crazy woman. So I've got that mark, a crazy woman, thinking differently since that day. And I spent 10 crazy years in the fields, and I enjoyed and loved every single minute of them. And I did fantastic jobs all around in Kuwait, up north, south, and there were no rules for me. I would go and spend 2 days in the fields, 3 days in the fields, do the best job I can, and then come back. And that was actually the time I learned my technical abilities. All my technical skills come from those days. But afterwards, we had that big invasion from our good neighbors now, north. And I worked during the 7 months of invasion, and then we had the fires. And as Ambassador Gnehm suggested, I worked as a firefighter. So I spent 7 months with the firefighting teams, and we put all the wells off, and we put an end to that. But I want to say something here. That idea of trying to break the norm and creating something different kept working with me all the time. And the way I see things today in the Middle East, especially in our part of the world, require big change, structural change, change that we actually did not talk about today in our meetings. So if I take you 1,000 meters above the ground level and look down at the Middle East, what do you see? You see the capital of the oil and gas in the world, because that's the area where you have more than 800 billion barrels of oil, conventional oil, discovered, but still yet to be developed or produced. And there is one huge advantage to this oil. It's the cheapest oil on the planet to develop and produce. So I have a theory that the last barrel of oil ever produced on this planet will be produced from the Middle East, just because of the cost structure. In Burgan field in Kuwait, until today, the cost is less than $1 a barrel to produce. The operating cost is less than $1 a barrel. You cannot beat that nowhere in the world. So we have huge cost advantage. And we have this magnificent resource throughout the region. But here is a very distorted picture, because this whole resource is actually a monopoly of these national oil companies and these governments. And as we hear today, the governments in our region control everything, including people, control assets, and they do all the businesses that they are not supposed to do. So if there is any restructuring that have to occur in the region, we should start from there. Governments should not be involved in running businesses, running assets. This is the area where we need to start with. I would like to start with giving you an example, a very lively example. We take two models, and I want you to think about these two models. Here in the US, we produce about 8.5 or 8.6 million barrels a day. Yes, it is down, but maybe those levels. And in Saudi, we produce 10.5 million barrels a day. In the US, there is probably 30,000 companies hiring 2 to 3 million people. That actually, it's coming down, but anyway, that's the kind of level they are into this industry. In Saudi, it's one company hiring 50,000 people. How correct that picture can be? It's a very distorted picture, because why can't Saudi have 20 companies managing the resource, where they can hire more people, where can have some competition, where you have some more transparent, so that they know if they are doing a good job or a bad job. So the idea of actually transforming the whole industry in our part of the world is a daunting idea, and it has to come. It has to come. We are behind in our oil industry from the rest of the world by like 60, 70 years. So we haven't caught up. And my premise, my thinking is we need to catch up. Not only that, think about it. We have only 2 independent oil and gas companies in the region. Kuwait Energy, our company is one of them. And there's another one called Dana Gas in the UAE. But that's it. The capital of the world has no independence. The oil and gas capital of the world has no independence. Even more so, go to the stock exchanges in the region, all of them. There is only 2 companies on the stock exchange that have oil and gas. So there is no oil and gas in the stock exchange. So what kind of capital markets we are promoting in that part of the world? So in my view, there has to come, that structural change has to come. And that's why in 2005, me with a bunch of my friends, we created an independent oil and gas company. Why? Because we said this is a very wrong picture and it has to change. Why? Because first, we believe smaller fields can be far more better managed by independents than by national oil companies. Secondly, I used to work for a national oil company. We did not build enough skill set within these companies to manage everything we have. So we have to bring talent, we have to bring expertise to manage the difficult oil, and at the same time, anything below 100 million barrels was never on the radar screen for development. As time goes, you will need to develop those assets. You need to pay attention to those fields. But national oil companies with this massive scale cannot do that. So my premise is, as time passes, there will be room for those independents. I think there will be more drive to create independence. And as I suggested in the morning, people should have direct access to their own wealth. Why do we have for governments to pass subsidies or to pass as cash or whatever? I'd love to have cash, but if you don't believe me, there are better ways of actually managing the resource. So we created Kuwait Energy, and we started with a plan, just $3 million seed capital and a plan. And then we went to the market in 2006, and we raised 170 million on the back of that plan. And we started our acquisition program. And now today, I proudly can say we are the largest independent oil and gas company in the region. We have 800 million barrels of 2P reserves. We had made the largest discovery in Iraq in 30 years. And we have created a very successful independent. But okay, so you create an independent and you try to promote creating more companies in the region and diversifying the industry. But what does that do to the people and to the region? And what actually, does it help the region to stabilize? Does it bring peace and prosperity to the people of the region if you do so? And my theory is, God has given us in the region everything that we need to create a very prosperous region. However, we, the people, have not been working towards that. And the example I will use here, if you look at our region, look at on one side of the Gulf, you see Iran. They are #1 reserves in the world on the gas. So in the morning we talked about Iran capacity and so on. Well, Iran is not about oil. No matter how much they invest in the oil, I think the maximum they can go up is maybe another 500, 700,000 barrels. But Iran is all about gas. They have enormous gas reserves in Iran. On the other side of the Gulf, every single country lacks gas. We do not have gas. It's Kuwait, it's Saudi, it's Bahrain, it's Emirates, it's Oman, it's Jordan, it's Syria, it's everyone. So if you look at this picture and say, okay, if I can remove these politics out of the game, what would be the best thing you can do for this region? And I dream of a big pipeline that circles this whole region. 3 pipelines. One of them is a gas line, the other one is an oil line, and the third one is the water line, because we have huge problem with water, every single one of us. And this pipeline, on these 3 pipelines, people can put gas in, put oil in, put water in, or take from that. And it can circle this whole region. And it's a dream. It's a crazy dream. I told you from the beginning, okay? But this kind of dream, I think, is the basis for a very peaceful region. Because, in my view, only economic relationships can create stability, can bring peace. It's not political relationships, it's not love and hate relationships, it's those economic relationships that can bring peace and prosperity. And the tools that we have to use for that is actually the oil and gas. And it is based on the supply-demand, on the need of the different countries in the region. But how can we make this happen? How can we actually create these relationships that can bring such dream to life? So look, in Kuwait Energy, we are a small company, but we think beyond our size. We think about beyond, the just thinking of the business. So we said, okay, if we can be a catalyst for building these relationships in the region, then we may be putting the seeds for this kind of future. And this is what we do. So what is the competitive advantage we have? We are very well positioned in Egypt. We know the government very well. We have this very intimate relationship. And if you just ask anyone about our position in Egypt, they will tell you, oh, this company, strangely, they are well paid when everybody is not paid. We are paid, we have no receivables in Egypt. I mean, this is a strange thing, but we do not have receivables. And why is that? Because after the revolution, 2011, the oil minister, an old friend, we used this relationship. We went to see a minister. I said, look, Mr. Minister, if I was in your position as oil minister, how would I think? What would I do for Egypt? He said, what would you do? I said, I will try to secure energy demands and requests of Egypt for the next 20 years. And I will try to think out of the box how I will satisfy these demands. And I know Egypt on its own cannot satisfy this demand because you don't have enough reserves in Egypt. But what you have in Egypt is you are the heart of the Arab world. Every single country in the Arab world would love to have this relationship with Egypt. And that's a great privilege that you have. Secondly, you have some excellent companies in Egypt, subsidiaries of the government. And you have EGPC, who has a lot of people. And this is something we in the industry lack. So do you have these components of strength? He said, yes, but so? I said, why would you limit yourself to operating in Egypt? You can move outside of Egypt. You have to move outside of Egypt. And there are 2 places you need to go. You need to go to Iraq, and you need to go to Libya. Because these are the countries where there is huge opportunity for you as government to develop your relationship, to leverage your relationship, and get assets. He said, well, we have never done this before. I said, okay, let's sign the strategic alignment contract or agreement between you and us, and where you help us in Egypt, we'll help you outside. The first thing we did, we made them qualify in Iraq. And the qualification letter that went to the Iraqi ministry was written by us. And we, on the other hand, we went to the Iraqi government where we had this beautiful relationship with the Iraqi government. And we convinced them that's in the best interest of Iraq to develop this relationship with Egypt. And they really loved to develop this relationship with Egypt. So they were very open to this idea. So we qualified EGPC, we qualified the companies of EGPC to operate in Iraq, and then we brought them together. We made them sign some kind of protocol between the two, and we list all the projects we want both countries to work on. Now the result of all this effort transpire in what? Egyptian government currently is our partner in Iraq in two of our biggest assets. They acquired 10% share in Block 9 and 20% share in Siba gas field. This is the first investment that the Egyptian government have outside of Egypt. We are also orchestrating all the relationship between the two countries. There is several projects that we are currently working on in order to bring them closer, including we are planning a big signing ceremony for this farm out that we did to EGPC by bringing the two ministers and having a big event. But there are many things that can be done between the two countries, and we are instrumental in bringing these countries together. So this is one example of how we utilize these relationships in order to bring to life these magnificent relationships that we have to do in order to create this big dream where economic interest can surpass political tension. But this dream is doable, and I really believe in it. And it is, today, Mr. Ali was talking about the ability of Saudi to monetize more of their crude if they had gas, cheap gas. Where can they get cheap gas? There is plenty of cheap gas in Iran, and it's just like 100 kilometers from their border. We dream of that day where we can bring these economic ties that can ease off all the tension that we have in the region. And this is the kind of dream we have to utilize oil and gas, which is the main resource in the region, to build peace and prosperity for the whole region. So this is a crazy idea, coming from a crazy woman, but I think if we work hard at it, it will happen. And I say, in the US, just give it to the women. Maybe it works better. Thank you.